How are you?
Good morning, Coach. Thanks for a few minutes of your time. We will get started here with Dina King.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you about your thoughts on signing a top 10 class this past Wednesday, and in specific, quarterback Connor Harrell. What do you like about Connor?
Well, I like what I like about Connor is the same thing I like about our class. It's an elite class, and Connor is we're just talking about him as we're discussing him, Deanna. I'm looking on the field here, and he's out there throwing with Sam Howell. You know what I mean? So he's here for the bowl practices, and he just came off a 24-1 run the last 2 years, 2 state championships, and he's unique in that he's a very, very talented passer. Easily the day he stepped in the room on Sunday, he's one of the better athletes in that room from a running standpoint. And then he's the valedictorian of his class. So, I mean, he's shown that he can handle success on the field and success in the classroom. And he's a really well-rounded, high-character kid, and he's an outstanding addition to the quarterback room here.
To follow that up, you mentioned he's there. What other kids are taking advantage of this early bowl practice?
So the only one I know of right now is Bo Atkinson is here, and Connor is here. And I think there's a plan to get 3 or 4 more. But those are the 2 that I see out on the field right now that I know are here today.
Thank you.
Michael Coe.
Hey, Coach. So how excited are you to have British Brooks be coming back for an extra year with the program? And when did you find out about that?
So, British talked to a number of coaches, including myself, and I think we made it very clear that we wanted him back next year. And I think everybody assumes that it's simply because of, the great game against NC State, but we wanted British back here regardless. And, as I say that, he's the veteran in that room. And as I say that, after today's practice, he took it upon himself to call the offense up and make a few comments. And that's not something that has happened here very often in the last 3 years. So, I think he has the potential to demonstrate some leadership, and he's done that. And he's just a great kid. He's been around, he's been tutored and guided and had examples like Michael Carter and Javonte Williams and Ty Chandler. And, I think he feels like now it's his time to step up and play that role. And so he has, and we're excited about him coming back next year.
Thank you.
CL Brown, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, kind of expanding on British. You said it wasn't because of the state game, but in those last 2 games, the Wofford game and the state game, did he reveal anything to you all in terms of what kind of running back he could be? Like next season, do you foresee him being more of a factor as a running back?
So I think his production and his contributions next year are going to be decided by British. Sure, those last 2 games, he had more of an opportunity, and he took advantage of the opportunity, and he produced, and he did, what we want of our running back in both of those games. And so, that's what we ask our guys to do, CL, is prepare yourself like you're the starter all the time. And he is the epitome of, the great American success story in college football. He walks on here. His only way of really getting on the field with the talent that was around him when he was younger and not as developed as he is now was to find a way to compete on special teams. Then he gets on special teams, and he's not just a role player there. He gets on all of the teams, and he excels at what he does. So every opportunity he got in special teams, he took advantage of, to the point where I think the last 2 years he's been our special teams player of the year. And then, he wasn't the most explosive guy going into last season or going into this season. And he gets edged out by Carter and Williams and Ty Chandler. And he just keeps grinding away and doing his job, waiting for his turn. He never comes late. You know what I mean? He never leaves early. He's a good student, a great character guy in the law. He's just that well-rounded guy, earns himself a scholarship. And that wasn't out of, you don't just hand this stuff out now. I mean, for a walk-on to get a scholarship, it is legitimately earned. And the other thing he's earned that I'd love to point out, CL, is the tremendous respect that the players have for him on this team. And for somebody like that to just work and grind and put himself into a position where he can go perform like he has the last 2 weeks. When he crosses the goal line, there's a lot of excited people on our team, because they like him and they root for him. And we're as much a fan of British Brooks as we are, needing him to come back and contribute next year. So I think British is where any player would want to be on his team. And obviously the amount of time he plays next year is solely on British. And I think if he continues with the way he finished this season so far, he's in pretty good position to play some football here.
And if I could switch gears, can you take me back to 2019 when Sam Howell was about to make that first start against South Carolina in the opener? What did you know what you had? I mean, like looking back at that first start, what were kind of some of the things that were going through your mind in terms of what Sam needed to do to be successful?
Well, I will say I had just a little bit of insight, CL, into what we had because I had recruited him at Ole Miss and he was a phenomenal high school football player. So the day he stepped on our campus, I was thrilled because I thought you don't know when it's going to happen, but I thought we have a potential great one here because of his talent base, so now we fast forward to that opening game in 2019. And we as and it's well documented, we scaled the playlist down. We made things simpler for him. We didn't ask a lot of him mentally because you don't know what he's capable of. This is a high school kid playing against an SEC opponent, first college start ever at Charlotte. And he leads us down the field in the fourth quarter to, I think we scored 2 or 3 times in the fourth quarter and we win at the end of the game. And, that starts this Sam Howell era. And I was ribbing him today. I was kind of poking at him, prodding him today about, hey, this is your last OTS drill ever on Chapel Hill grass. Hey, this is your third to the last practice you'll ever work out here, that kind of thing. And he's a little sentimental. I'm very sentimental. And it's kind of interesting that he started his time here at Charlotte against South Carolina, and the Sam Howell era will end here in Charlotte against South Carolina. And our plan is to try and end it the same way. And so we won't know that until we get there on Thursday.
Thank you.
Luciano, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I hope you're doing well, and thanks for your time. What stands out the most to you out of South Carolina's defense, and are there many differences when preparing for an SEC defense compared to what you have faced throughout the season?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a difference other than there are differences from team to team just based on personnel, and then what does the DC do schematically from one conference to the next. I don't know that we don't look at Notre Dame or Clemson or South Carolina or anybody else that we play for another conference. That I think what you want to do is you want to figure out, hey, where are they personnel wise and how do we match up with them? And then what do they do schematically so that we can game plan to take advantage of the things that they may give up. And that's really been the approach for South Carolina. They're very, very talented on the defensive line. They have 3 really good DNs that are athletic. They're good pass rushers. They're physical. They get off blocks. And you got 7 guys on the South Carolina defense that are veterans, including their 2 linebackers and some guys in the secondary. 1 or 2 of their D tackles out of the 3 that they play. They're all veterans and they're seniors, and so they played there for a while. So they're a physical challenge. Corners are very long, rangy, use their hands well after you get off the line of scrimmage. So we have a challenge at wide out against those guys. And I think schematically, we have been fortunate enough the last 2 times that I've coached against South Carolina, it was against the old regime, and we had 2 really, really good offensive days. This is a new scheme and a new defensive coordinator, so it's been a different approach from a scheme standpoint. But, after these past 7, 8 practices, I feel good about where we are preparing, for this last game, this bowl game.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, when you look back at the regular season, would you say that running in short yardage situations, especially in the red zone, and pass protection were the two biggest areas of concern offensively? And if so, which thing is more challenging to actually improve?
I would say both of those are, if we have two areas of concern, I think that those are areas that we would like to have had better production. There's no question. The short yardage out in the middle of the field wasn't as an issue. I mean, down on the goal line is where I think we really struggle to move some people up front. And that'll obviously be an area of emphasis going into the spring. But truthfully, Andrew, it's been an area of emphasis right now because, we're going to have some reps here in the bowl game that we have to win. And so, we've handled that schematically a little bit. And then I think from a pass protection standpoint, it's more about technique, and our physicality and the way we handle it in a one-on-one situation and a two-on-two versus twist type situation. Those are areas that we have to technique better, execute better. And you can change protection, you can max pro, you can do some things schematically, you can move your quarterback, all of those things we've employed this year. But at the end of the day, there are some simple drop back protections that everybody in college football is using, and we've been good with them in the past, and we were not this year. And so that's been the second area of emphasis for this bowl game, and it will continue to be heading into spring ball.
On the flip side from that, what part of the offense grew during the course of the regular season that pleased you the most with how it grew and the process it went through doing that?
Yeah, there's a few areas, I really felt like we did a good job for the teams that played off the ball, played and kept us in front of them. We did a good job on longer drives of taking what they give us, nickel and diming them and running the football and dropping the ball in the shorter areas and easier throws. They force you to be more disciplined when, you've got to add plays. So when you have 8, 10, 12 play drives, they're banking on you making mistakes. And I thought as the season went on, we did a really good job of minimizing those mistakes. We had 2 games early on in the year where we turned the ball over very uncharacteristically. And then outside of those 2 games, we were able to get back to where we had been the last 2 seasons with regards to protecting the ball. And so I was happy with those areas. I also felt like as an overall unit, we depended a lot on Josh Downs early in the season. And as we got into games 4, 5, 6, and 7, our receiver room kind of grew up a little bit. We did some things schematically to help them, but they got better on press releases. They got better running against man coverage. And our wideouts did a better job of getting themselves involved in the game plan. And so those were areas that I thought we really improved on. And believe it or not, Sam did some pretty impressive things from a mental standpoint with regards to getting us into some plays and decision-making. And so I was really happy with that with regards to Sam. And I was also happy with how much input he had with our younger quarterbacks and in helping me develop those guys for the future. And the Wofford game, where we played basically one quarterback a half, and both of them graded out very, very well mentally. And I think a lot of that was the work they've done and also, the time that Sam has spent sharing his own personal experiences in this offense with those guys. So those were areas offensively, Andrew, that I thought really are paying dividends for us here in the home stretch, and hopefully they continue to into the bowl game.
Mark, if I could ask just one more quick question here. There's 2 hands up. Was there something about Sam that he showed you at some point during these 3 years where you thought to yourself, oh, okay, he's got that too?
The first year I thought like game 4 or 5, as we got in and around that Clemson game, I thought it was evident earlier that he was going to be able to learn and understand what we do. I think it was maybe after the first third of the season in 2019, his first year, that I realized, I've got a challenge here because I've got to keep feeding this kid. He's not content with, okay, here, we got it. We know the play. He wanted to know the next progression. He wanted to know what's the next thing? What else can I do on this play to help us? And so we had to keep feeding him. And also because of, how intelligent he is and how much he knows the game, we were able to advance the offense schematically. And that typically, Andrew, is dictated, by how good the quarterback is mentally. So everywhere I've ever been, we've taken the offense to a certain distance because of the talent, because that'll restrict you in a certain way, or it'll allow you to expand. But truthfully, the number one thing that correlates to being able to expand offensively anywhere in any offense is the ability of the quarterback to handle it, without you bogging him down where he can't play fast. And we just never really hit that. So I learned that the first season, and then I think going in the last year, he showed a lot of patience and self-control with regards to having to run the ball and do different things. And he was a master distributor of the football last year, and that's really in the air raid philosophy, that's really where you want your quarterback to be, and then this year, because of need, we lost 2,000-yard running backs. So because of need, we needed greater production in the run game. And, I think he showed not just me, but the whole country that he can be a 1,000-yard rusher. He can be a guy that can be a running weapon in an offense. I don't think he plans on doing that at the next level. I hope not, right? We all don't, but we needed it here, and he did it, and he was an integral part of our offensive success this year, and he just had to do it a different way, and he showed that he could. So every year has been a little bit different chapter for him, but he is without question 3 years better than he was the day that he beat South Carolina on the opening game of the season.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Coach.
No problem. Gregory Hall, go ahead.
Phil, obviously, you just said a lot about Sam. But as much as you knew going into that first South Carolina game that you thought you had, it'd be hard to predict him being the greatest quarterback that UNC's ever seen. Just what's different about him from that first game going into this last game against South Carolina? What do you think is the largest difference?
So you definitely, all I knew was we had a good quarterback with a lot of potential, and potential that's a wide open word, right? So I don't know if this is the answer you want, but he has that it factor. You hear that from coaches all the time. That really exists in this sport. He just, there's guys that are just as talented as Sam that would not have produced the way he did. There are guys that are taller, faster, maybe even stronger, and may not have had the stellar career that he had, because there's another factor, and it's how well do you translate what you know in the classroom to how you can execute it on the field. And there isn't a drop off with him. There just isn't. What he learns is what you can actually do on the field. The second thing I would say is he is after the first year where I think he did try to do some things he wasn't capable of doing. You did not have to continue to try and coach the same issues. When you make a correction with them, it gets handled, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And so I think he did a great job in year 2 and year 3 of playing within his own ability, minimizing mistakes, expanding his role from a leadership standpoint. And I'd say the other thing would be his willingness to put the time in to go and coach guys at every position with regards to we need something on a particular play in practice or a game, and it's not getting done. And he'll either grab them on the sideline or grab them in between racks of plays in practice and correct it and get it coached so that we don't have the same mistake when we take the field to the next drive. Those are all things that I think he demonstrated, and he did so well here, and he got better at as his 3 years, progressed. And I as you can tell from what I'm saying, I couldn't be happier with what we got out of Sam Howell here. And it makes me smile when I think, people like you are saying he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play at North Carolina.
And then Josh Downs, you mentioned the receivers kind of growing up and being able to step up when he started early and the other receivers couldn't necessarily get off releases and things like that. He's had one of the greatest seasons by a wide receiver at UNC this year. How have you seen teams defend him and adjust their defenses to maybe bracket him more, double team him? And how is he able to even exploit those extra adjustments that defenses had to make?
So on the athletic end, Josh's attack bracket coverage, which is, the attention of 2 defenders without getting into all the specifics here. And then he's also in man-free coverage. He has the initial defender that's covering him. And then, he'll get spied by inside players, or they'll help double team him with the safety over the top. And Josh might be more the attraction in man coverage for the safety. So he has, because of his productivity, really attracted double coverage. And on the athletic end, he has done a great job of beating number one and then addressing two. And it's hard to beat double coverage. I mean, it's really difficult. But because of his twitch and his quickness, there's 4 players left on the field right now, and he's one of them out there running routes on Kamari Morales. I mean, it just gives you an idea. The work ethic with regards to just wanting to excel and be the best one out there is a big reason why athletically he was able to beat some of that double coverage stuff. And then we helped him from a coaching standpoint. Schematically, that's our job. How do we get the second defender away from him? How do we use other receivers to get him open? How do we move him or formation him or bring him out of the backfield in an effort to get him away from double coverage so that you can get him into those one-on-one matchups again, where he's flourished this year. So, I think we got to do our job and help him schematically. And then, he went and did his from an athletic standpoint, and it's been fun watching him put together one of the best seasons ever. I look forward to watching him in this last one.
And was it something that you had to coach him early on, like during the preseason, like, look, you're going to get doubled and this is how you can get around it? Or is that something that you had to adjust and adapt early on once you realized, one, how talented he actually was going to be this season, and 2, what defenses were going to do?
So I think the only thing really we address with Josh, we still do, is he's so capable of doing so many special things athletically on the field that, you kind of have to reel him in a little bit. It's a fine line because you want to let guys that are special, athletically and from a talent standpoint out on the field, you want to let them go and do their own thing. And we ran some routes and did some things this year that you don't install in the offense. They're in the back chapter, right? And you just leave them there until you have somebody special like Josh Downs, and you utilize them. We use some of those things with DK Metcalf and AJ Brown and Elijah Moore, and even with Daz Newsome and Diami. But you've got to have somebody that can do some of those special things before you utilize those things. And we were able to do that with Josh. And I think on the other end, because he can do so much, there were times where he put a triple move on, and not only would he smoke the safety, but he'd also smoke our quarterback, right? So we want to throw and we don't know when because he's so twitchy. And so I think there's a fine line there, and he's helped us. He's done a good job of kind of leveling in that gray area, where we can let him utilize his athleticism and play fast, but he's still conforming to the play so that our quarterbacks can drop the ball in. And that's something we'll continue to do with him. And I don't know that you've seen the best of Josh Downs yet. So that's why I say I'm looking forward to him in the bowl game.
All right, we'll close up today. Our final question will come from Luciano.
Coach, what does having signed the #1 ranked offensive tackle in the country mean to you as a coach and to this program?
Oh, it's a huge signing. You want to fortify every position, but I've always said this, as much as people ask me to talk in clinic, it's on the passing game or the, protection or schematic stuff. Rarely do I get to talk about the run game because of the words air raid all the time. But, and I say that to say this, there is nothing more important, whether we're running the football or throwing the football, there's nothing more important in our recruiting class every year than the offensive line. I think my first 2 priorities every year are getting in the offensive line that we need to do the things that we want to do and finding an elite quarterback. And I don't think that that's rocket science. That's nothing that people don't know, but the O-line is a much greater priority in my mind with regards to our offensive success than I think people think. And second only to maybe finding that elite quarterback, I think that's the top priority for us offensively, is bringing guys like Zach Rice in, and we're going to need to continue to do that if we want to take this program where it's going and where we plan to.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate a few minutes of your time today.
Happy holidays, you guys. See you all at the bowl game.